What's up, everyone? This is Zach from the Roads to Liberty podcast group, and we are here with a special. We have Mike Knievel playing the evil villain tonight.
I don't even know why you say this. You constantly give me a hard time. You're supposed to respect your elder statesmen. You know this.
And we have Michael Heiss, correct?
You got it. Most people say Heisey, so good job.
I mean, you got to know that last E is silent, right?
Most people don't.
Some people, I swear. This is why we can't have nice things. So, you are the co-founder of the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus.
That
correct?
I am.
Roads to Liberty presents a little something new. It's the co-hosts of Liberty, featuring Zach Taylor and Mike Knievel.
So there's been some kerfuffles recently that you guys have kind of been at the center of, or some would say instigated. So Mike has a lot of questions for you. I'm here to kind of just keep the conversation flowing. So I'm going to mute. Mike, take it away.
Well, sure. Well, first of all, Michael, thanks again for joining. I think with a lot of the stories that have been going out, and I know that you had said that there had been a lot of misinformation going on out there, I wanted to just have an opportunity to sit down and talk with you, because, I mean, I've been seeing Mises Caucus stuff.
Real quick, I have to jump in 1 second. This is for Jared Hall, who will either watch this or listen to it at some point. Jared, I'm enjoying Runza in your honor. Continue.
My co-host isn't nearly as unprofessional as this. No, so, there's just been a lot of stuff kind of going on, and I've been seeing a lot of stuff with the Mises Caucus over the last few months. Thanks for coming on. We'll try and set the record straight. I guess my first thing is, the Mises Caucus kind of came out of nowhere, it seemed like. Can you give us maybe just a few minutes of, what prompted you to start this and where this whole idea came from to said, I'm gonna have a national caucus, or trying to do a national caucus here with the Libertarian Party?
Well, the rumor is that we started just as a response to the whole situation that happened with Nick Sarwark and the Mises Institute. And the fact of the matter is anybody can go and search hashtag Mises Caucus and find that I've actually been tossing this idea around for months prior to that. And where did the idea come from? Well, I talk about how the Ron Paul campaign a lot. And the reason for that is because I feel very, very strongly that at that point in time, the Liberty movement was at its most healthy and cohesive. There's a lot of young people now who did not get to experience that. A lot of young libertarians who are in the Libertarian Party who didn't experience that. And I don't think they understand what it's like to have a healthier, cohesive movement. What do I mean by that? We had millions and millions of people across the entire country. There was no hyphenated anarchism. There was no people saying, oh, well, did you come in from the Democrats? Did you come in from the Republicans? Oh, you're a conservative. This did not exist. It just didn't exist. We were all coalesced around a common goal, which was the pursuit of the message of liberty through the Ron Paul campaign. And there was millions of us. There was literally millions of us across the world, and we had fun. That was the big thing. We were having fun. There was no fighting and all of this stuff. So I reflect very fondly on that and contrast it with my experience in the Gary Johnson campaign, which was just a night and day different experience. And I would like those good times back. I would like to get the movement back to a place of being cohesive and being healthy and being productive and have a culture of work and action and fun and results that we had back then.
Sure. Well, when you were talking about all these different boxes, coming in, did you come in from Republicans, Democrats, wherever it was? When I started with the Libertarian Party, it seemed to be pragmatics and radicals. That was how the party split itself. The last I don't know, I'd say 16 months, it definitely seems like there's been a lot more fractioning of the party. Where do you see like yourself and the primary group of people that have been supportive of you? Like where did they fall on the spectrum?
Well, it's actually there's not really any one flavor. I mean, if I had to pick, I would say the majority of them are probably anarcho-capitalists, but we don't, there's a little bit of a big tent there. It's not quite as big as the Libertarian Party is, but the reason why it's the Mises Institute is because Karl Menger started the Austro-Libertarian School, or the Austrian Economic School, which really was pioneered and foundationed on Mises. So we are basically a collection of that Austrian tradition that includes classical liberals and minarchists, because that's what Mises himself was, and anarchists and Hoppians and Rothbardians and Ron Paul people and Tom Woods fans and all that kind of stuff. It's just that general, because there is that difference, and because Rothbard didn't agree with everything with Hoppe and all of this kind of thing, you know, we kind of agreed to just let certain things go. So like the caucus actually doesn't have a hard stance on, say, borders or abortion or things that are we would consider needlessly divisive, because we feel that really is divide and that there's good faith arguments on both sides. So we focus more on Austrian economics, foreign policy of peace, freedom of association, and property rights.
Okay. A lot of this is very, very, very important. I mean, why, you know, a lot of people will say, why do this within the Libertarian Party, and why not, you know, spawn off and do this as like an independent group, or, you know, join up with the RLC folks in the GOP?
Well, because we are libertarians. I mean, that's what we are. And the fact of the matter is that the majority of libertarians are not in the Libertarian Party. I mean, the figure I like to pull out is that the Ron Paul campaigns had millions and millions of supporters in 2008, and then millions and millions more in 2012, and yet somehow the Libertarian Party has 500,000 in like 46 years or something like that. So, you know, you kind of have to ask yourself, why is that? Why are most libertarians not in the party? Now, there's a lot of people in the party, it seems to me, who want to fall back on the excuse, essentially, that, oh, well, we're the Libertarian Party, we have the name, they don't join, that's their fault. But that's not how this works. This is a market, just like anything else. And in this market, we have to attract people and we have to represent people. And the majority of them don't feel represented here. So I think we need to change that. And we have to ask, why don't they feel represented here?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's something that's, I think, really kind of been made evident over the last, you know, 12 to 16 months after the Gary Johnson campaign ended. There seemed to be a lot of, you know, bad blood with a lot of libertarians and trying to find common ground. You know, this whole Ron Paul story, what's the deal with this? You know, I've been hearing, I'll be honest, I'm friends with people across the spectrum, you know, for national, different states and everything. And I've not gotten a straight answer from anybody. So I want to come straight to you and be like, what was the deal with Ron Paul? Sure. Well, this all started back sometime in October. I mean, the specific dates, I'm not going to remember, but sometime in October. Well, prior to that, let's start with where this all spawned. I went to Aspen, Colorado in September for what was called the Nexus conference. And Nexus is the most amazing cryptocurrency there is. And they are partnered with...
Tanked. It took a lot of money out of me. Holy
everything
crap.
Tanked. Everything tanked. Dude, Bitcoin is down to like $7,000. Right?
I'm hurting right now. Anyway, go ahead.
Everybody's hurting. You know, the stock market crashed today. Everybody's hurting. But
4.5-5% drop today. So that was fun.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I went to the Nexus conference. And that was right at the beginning of the Mises Caucus. And while, like I said, we weren't created as a reaction to the Nick Sarwark situation. However, people don't believe me, but it was a coincidence. I don't use Twitter. That situation happened on Twitter, and I happened to make the group at the exact same time that it was going on, and I didn't even know it. So we happened to absorb the entire fallout of that. Now, we had very quick growth. I went to the Nexus conference looking to make looking to network and bring people in and bring in some big figures and see if we can get some positive changes in the Libertarian Party by bringing in people. Now, when I say networking, I'm talking about people like Pat Byrne, Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, big name people. You know what I mean? And one of the contacts that I had made that carried through was Jim Cantrell. Now, Jim Cantrell is the co-founder of SpaceX. He is the founder of now his own private space company called Vector Space Systems. They are partnered with the Nexus cryptocurrency. In fact, he is the father of the creator of Nexus, and that partnership is producing a array of satellites that is going to, one, act as an added layer of security for the Nexus network, but also beam down free and decentralized internet. And when you consider that there's billions of people across the world that have no access to internet and no access to banking. So if you give them free internet and access to the blockchain, which is essentially banking services on a global scale, the potential for a free market revolution across the world like we've never seen is there. So he was a contact. He expressed interest in wanting to get more involved in the Libertarian Party. So the first thing I did was I connected him with Daniel Hayes, and Jim Cantrell is going to be a speaker at the national convention. So that kind of formed a working relationship with Daniel Hayes, and kind of put me at the negotiating table. And I had friends who are now former Nexus team members, and other people that I knew might be interested in trying to get Ron Paul there. And I knew how much it cost for him to get to the Nexus conference. So I didn't know at that point how we would be done, but it was a good idea. I knew it was a good idea. So sure. I opened up the idea in sometime in October with Hayes. And at first he was all about it. I mean, it was a positive thing between me and him at first. And he said, go for it. Now at that point, didn't really have a pathway to make it happen, but I worked on it. And I eventually got in touch with his rep, Ron Paul and Judge Knapp's rep. Judge Knapp himself actually hooked me up with that rep. So started getting interest and got an interested sponsor to help ensure that this would happen.
Sure.
Now at some point in early December, Ron Paul wrote an article titled "Good News: Young Americans Are Ready for a Third Party." And Hayes sent that article to me and said, it's an infamous screenshot now, that Ron Paul is out and he doesn't know what the LP stands for. Now, those other screenshots that he had put out, he was cool with Ron Paul coming at the beginning. That's why he purposely left the date and time out, because that was in October prior to the article. So he wrote that, and I let it go. There's a reason why there was a gap between December when he said that and all of this busting out now. That's because I said, okay, apparently he's angry. I'm just going to let it sit, let it chill. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I felt that my success with Judge Knapp was due in large part to the fact that I was able to have a 20-minute face-to-face conversation with him at the Nexus conference and form a connection. So I didn't like the fact that I was only going through Ron Paul's rep to talk to him, because I felt like, oh, here's another kid trying to do something and he just wants to get Ron Paul out. It's just another business as usual type of thing. So I wanted to try to flex my contacts a little bit to see if I can get in direct contact with him. So for the next 6 weeks or so, that's what I did. And I ended up back with the rep. So one of the contacts I tried to utilize didn't know I was in contact with the rep, put me back in with the rep. It had come full circle. And it was like, I guess we'll just try again, and push forward. And so I went to Hayes and said, okay, well, the rep is still interested and needs specific information. At that point, I had two tasks. The tasks were to connect the sponsor with the rep and let them iron out the details with that. And I needed to get specific information from Hayes as to which day and time of the convention that Ron and Judge would be speaking. So I went to Hayes and said, hey, the interest is still there. If they were to speak, when would they speak? And he saw the messages and ignored me. And I waited hours and hours and kept messaging and saying, hey, what's going on? And until finally I said, okay, I guess he's actually sticking with the Ron Paul things, the no Ron Paul thing 6 weeks later or however long it is. So I said, okay, I guess I'll just tell the rep that you're not interested. And he gave me a thumbs up. So that's what I had to do. And I felt.
Can I jump in here for a little context?
Sure.
Aaron Adams has publicly stated this. The convention committee voted against bringing in Ron Paul, regardless of.
I was completely in the dark about that. Anything that happened on the convention committee, I was not told about. I did not know about. I had no idea until I started seeing those things from her.
Yeah, and I think that's an element of this story that a lot of people are not reporting, and I am very interested in the whole story getting out, so I really want to drive this home. The convention committee did not want Ron Paul, regardless of fee. Continue.
Right. And I don't. The one caveat with that, though, is I'm not sure if that was like an official meeting where we can go and get the minutes or not. I know some people have inquired about that. Again, I was in the dark about that. I have no idea. I still don't know what happened with that.
She said it was a vote in the post that she made publicly. So I assume it was
should get those
something
minutes
official.
Then. We should get those minutes then. But so yeah, at this point he doubled down and like I said in the article, what self-described libertarian who, mind you, has an incentive to get AAA speakers, regardless of ideologies. He has an incentive to put on a good event and sell tickets and not pay. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted Ron Paul there, and I'm not going to lie, there was a specific reason I wanted Ron Paul there. I want Ron Paul there because of what Ron Paul represents. The Mises Caucus is filled with Ron Paul supporters, Rothbardians, Mises Institute fans, Tom Woods fans, and everybody from what I'll just broadly term the Ron Paul sphere of libertarianism. And so I specifically stated in my request to the rep that we absolutely are not looking for any kind of endorsement or anything like that. You're not allowed, even if you wanted to. And we just want his presence there. We just want him there. He can say whatever he wants. That's not our concern. We just want his presence there because we feel that would, one, it would be attractive, but two, it would rally Ron Paul's base, which happens to be the same type of people that are in the caucus. So that was some of the motivation behind it. And so where did I leave off?
You were just talking about still the communication with Hayes and how that dropped off.
Right. So what self-described libertarian who has an incentive to sell tickets would say, no, I don't want Ron Paul for free. And as far as the fee, that, then so I made an article about it, and I put it out, and it got picked up by pretty much everybody in the libertarian movement. Almost all the outlets. It got picked up by 71 Republic, got picked up by Liberty Hangout, got picked up by the Free Thought Project, bunch of blogs. Reason Magazine was in my inbox. I mean, it just totally blew up. And so then that's when the fangs came out and the narrative changed like 30 times. Oh, they were going to get IOUs. Oh, they wanted to put the party on the hook for 35 grand. There was no 35 grand. Now, I think that figure comes from the fact that they had prior experience trying to coordinate with Ron Paul, and that's the figure that they had gotten.
I can say that's, roughly his speaking fee.
Right, and I know what the speaking fee was for Nexus. I don't want to put too much of their business out and stuff, but I know that what the fee was for Nexus. However, in my conversations with the rep, I told him what the Mises Caucus goals are and why we exist, and which, by the way, we were never shy about. We have been out in the open about the fact that we want to shake up the Libertarian Party and replace as much of the LNC minus a few people. From the beginning, that was never something that we were shy about, and we were not going to be shy about. And so essentially, he told me, "All right, well, go to your sponsor, go to your people, and get a budget, and come back to me, and we'll work it out." So
I mean, yeah, we've got Ron Paul coming here to Omaha for this event called the Unconvention in May. So I mean, I'm familiar with what his speaking fees and schedule and stuff like that entail, and I know that if someone is mentioning, hey, we're going to get Ron Paul for this, the first thing I look at is, well, how are we going to budget that? I will say this: Ron Paul would be a huge draw, but have have you yourself been to a libertarian convention yet?
No, my first one's going to be the PA convention here in the beginning of March.
Okay, but you haven't been to a national one yet or anything like that?
No, I'm relatively new to the party. I joined the party after the Rand Paul campaign failed spectacularly.
Okay. And I apologize. I guess I had thought that when you were talking about being over with the Ron Paul movement, that maybe you had come over to the party a lot earlier. I know myself and a lot of other people kind of came over in 2007, 2008. Specifically in Nebraska, we got ballot access in 2010. So from that point forward, a lot of us were able to be registered as libertarians.
From the Ron Paul campaign, I've been involved in a lot of different activist-related projects. So, like, I co-hosted Adam versus the Man with Kokesh at the beginning of 2013. I wrote for Filming Cops. I ran a YouTube channel. I did a podcast. I did a whole bunch of different activist-related stuff outside of the party. I've been involved for like 10 years.
But you just finally decided, you know what, I'm done being an independent or being on the Republican side with Rand Paul, and I'm gonna jump in full force.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I was left without a home, and I never considered myself a Republican. I never considered voting for Cruz, which was another funny rumor. I never considered voting for anybody but Ron and Rand. And once they did that, and Rand just ran such a bad campaign and bad strategy. I kind of had taken the route of the Libertarian Party's joke the entire time. And but then I started thinking about it strategically and, thinking about debate access and all that kind of things. And to be honest with you, the thought that really kicked me into gear to start the caucus is, oh, my God, they almost got debate access with Gary Johnson, who was widely considered. Now, to be fair, I supported Johnson and I worked a poll for him, but he was widely considered a divisive and an ineffectual candidate. And he almost got debate access, and they had to resort to bullshit to keep him out. So it stands to reason that is an achievable goal in the future. And the thought of Bill Weld or somebody like him being the one to get on the debate stage and be the introduction to libertarianism to the American public is just something that I couldn't stomach. What's going to happen to the word libertarian if that happens is what's going to happen is what happened to the word liberal back in the 40s. They're going to kill it.
Well, I'll agree with you on the Bill Weld thing. I mean, we were down in Orlando, and I worked very tirelessly for the Austin Peterson campaign, but we also tried to whip up a bunch of votes for Larry Sharp, and it was very, very close on that next round of voting for vice president between Sharp and Weld. So Weld was definitely not going to be the torchbearer, not somebody that you want there. He brought in, I will say this, he brought in some interest from more of the left-leaning political spectrum, but I don't think that's who you want. That's what
all this is about, by the way.
For the party. Yeah,
that's what all this is about.
So,
this is about a decision has been made to what direction the Libertarian Party is going to go. Is it going to go left libertarian and use Democrat-like tactics and talk about immigration and alternative lifestyles and all of this kind of stuff, or are we going to stick to core libertarian things that make us unique, like the Fed and complete no compromise, no on foreign policy and stuff like that? The decision seems to have been made to not just go with left libertarianism, but reject everything else, and that is a problem that has to change. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback here, and by no means am I going to come off rude, but I want to know, after New Orleans, you get the caucus down there, you guys sweep out the majority of the LNC members that you want to sweep out, and you get people in that you want in. What's your next step? Mises Caucus has control of LNC. What's your next step with the Libertarian Party for the next couple of years?
Before I answer that, just to be fair, we are appealing to candidates that are already running, and if they conform, with what, it's not like we are just recruiting people that wouldn't otherwise be running, and it's a Mises Caucus takeover. But to answer your question, my big goals, I should say, are we want Tom Woods 2020, and the only way that's going to happen is if we are successful and we create a party and create a demographic in the party where it wouldn't be hostile to him running. And I think it's very obvious that it would be hostile to him running, which is insane to me. And but the other big thing is the Libertarian Party must become the home of the cryptosphere. It's not an option. If we want to be successful, we have to become the political home of the cryptosphere, because if people might not understand who haven't really looked into what is happening with cryptocurrency, it's not just Bitcoin, it's not just money. The Uber model and decentralization is coming. It's to everything. It's coming. It's going to break down the internet service provider cartel. It's going to break down the phone service cartel. It's going to change how we do shipping. It's going to change everything. The Uber model is coming to absolutely everything. It's happening right before our eyes, and the market is choosing it. There's a very strong link between cryptocurrency and libertarianism. It's a libertarian invention. Now, young people are primarily attracted to libertarianism. Young people are very much so attracted to cryptocurrency. In fact, 30 or 40% now of millennials would rather invest in cryptocurrency than stocks. There is a link there that needs to be thought about. And in addition to that, it is a huge transfer of wealth to libertarians. I mean, Ron Paul woke up many people to the fraud of the Federal Reserve. And because of that understanding, when they came into contact with Bitcoin in 2012 and 2013, they understood that it could be used as an end run, or cryptocurrency could be used as an end run around the government or around the Fed. So they were incentivized to get it. And you have all kinds of Bitcoin rich libertarians now looking for how they can contribute. We need to court them. We need to court them. It's not an option. We have to court them because we don't have any money. And we have to become the home of the cryptosphere, because nobody else is going to fight for their right to not be taxed, not be regulated, and not be info gathered. And that will solve much more money problems as well. What's
going to be your specific steps to do that? Because here, so let me give you a quick background. We've actually got right now 3 bills dealing with blockchain and cryptocurrency going through our legislature, going through the unicameral. There is one that deals with blockchain and contractual law, which I think is a good one. There's one that tries to tax cryptocurrencies, which I think is a horrible one. But the fact is, legislators are looking at either opening up the markets to this on the state level or shutting it down. Now, do you see specific steps that the party can take to, you say, go after all these people that are in the cryptocurrencies? That's great, but there's got to be some specific goals here. You've got to be able to meet with people at local and state level government.
I'm sorry, buddy, your audio is fading out. I can barely hear you.
Sorry. So it's great, but I mean, you've got to be able to meet with Zach.
What's up?
Are you able to? He says he can't hear me.
I mean, there's nothing I can do. There's no soundboard.
Oh, okay.
I'll try to make do. I mean, I can hear you. It doesn't sound very good, but I'll try to make do. Sorry, keep going. Okay.
Sorry. So basically just looking for some specifics. Do you have plans to meet with state legislators, to meet okay. And are you, as part of your goal, not only to court the young, members of the Libertarian Party, or the young members that should be in the Libertarian Party, but the party's nothing without candidates? Is that something that you're going to focus on? Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to basically shift completely from before and after New Orleans. We're going to have to focus. We're going to have to shift from in-reach to outreach. And now, as far as you asked me, what are some plans as far as the crypto thing? One, we would like to have a blockchain voting platform installed on for party business. That makes it very easy, clean, tamper-proof, and available to everybody. And it's just easy and it's attractive. And we would be the first national party to do that. It makes us cool. Young people like cool things. Libertarianism is cool. So it's just a very attractive thing in general. Do that, but I'm of the opinion that because the Libertarian Party, I'm of the opinion that electoral success is almost secondary to the fact that the party is a vehicle for the message. If we have political success, it should be selling people on the goodness of our message. So See, and this is where I'm going to disagree with you, because I see that's where a lot of the party's been focused on for the last 4 decades.
Has to be mixed with marketing. If you don't have marketing, you're left with Arvin Vara. It has to be mixed with marketing, and that doesn't mean compromising principles. Like Ron Paul was very principled and very consistent, and he was very attractive. Yet somehow Arvin isn't. There's a tightrope to walk here between principles and marketing. You know what I mean? But I mean, if the point is, oh well, you disagree with me, and well, then what is the alternative? If we're not selling them on the goodness of our message, then what the hell are we doing? We're acting like the Republicans and the Democrats. We're playing politics as usual. Libertarianism is a radical ideology to the status quo, and that is what gets people motivated. We're not going to motivate people by being milquetoast.
No, and I never said that. What I was trying to get at is this whole focus of, the message has to be great and we have to be on point. And I've stressed with a lot of our volunteers here within the state is that, look, if you're going to go out there and you're going to speak to the benefits of what we're going to do, speak to them on their level. Look the part, look respectable, but also it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if you're a great motivator, if you're a great communicator, if you're not in a position to where you can't actually move the needle forward on liberty. So, I mean, if you don't have people that are on city councils, school boards, if you don't have people that are lobbying for certain things, to a certain extent, libertarians have to play the game in order to get liberty moved forward. I mean, if we're just standing on the outside.
Well, we're making philosophical concessions just by having, a libertarian party. So I don't disagree with you with that. I just don't see how there's any separation between selling people on the goodness of our message and playing the game. I refer back to the Ron Paul campaign, millions and millions in just one campaign, and then millions and millions more in another campaign. So it's very doable. It's doable. It's an attractive message. Another thing I think the party should be doing is that because of our small and relatively speaking to the other parties, weak position, we should be pushing non-state action of how people can circumvent the state or otherwise get the state out of their lives. So we should be pushing jury nullification. We should be pushing gun ownership. We should be pushing cryptocurrency. These are all things that the individual, it's an empowering message that you like, because what are we going to say? Okay, we want to audit the Fed. We have no chance of auditing the Fed. We have nobody in up in that level to do it. So we can't do it. Mm-hmm. So what can we do? Well, we can tell you to get cryptocurrency and you don't need to wait for us to do that. That's your choice.
Yeah, no, those are some good ideas. And I mean, working with other groups too, sometimes you've got to work with people outside of the libertarian sphere if you want to, advance things with like you said, with cryptocurrency, especially with Second Amendment rights. I'm not an NRA guy. I mean, there's firearm owners association.
GOA.
There's other things. Yeah.
GOA. Yeah.
So there are definitely those other organizations that we can work with that aren't purely libertarian to move that forward. You'd mentioned Arvin a little bit ago, and I was just going to completely ignore that. But what's your thoughts about Arvin, real quick? I'm just curious because I can't stand the guy. I'll just throw that one right out there.
Well, like I said, if he tries to come from a hardcore, hardline principle position, and he doesn't mix it with marketing, because I believe that at root, what are we fighting? Like if you break everything down, what are we fighting? We are fighting the arbitrary belief in authority. That is what we are fighting. So if we're going to acknowledge that this is a psychological problem, we're going to have to be therapeutic in our application to the solution. That means that there's a psychological aspect to this that can't be ignored. We can't purposely trigger negative feelings in people because you can't reason with fear, you can't reason with anger. So that's where the marketing comes in.
Sure. I guess the one benefit to Arvin's rants is that, to be honest, no one outside of our echo chamber knows who he is. So it's really just damaging the brand from within inside. I mean, if we just all shut up about it.
I don't know. Iowa lost. Iowa was talking about. No, it wasn't Iowa. One of the states in our region lost donors and volunteers over the problem.
It's funny. We lost a couple of volunteers when we spoke out against Arvin. If you remember that last year.
Yeah, so. Mr. I'm not even going to say his name, but
no, we won't even bring.
He's blocked on my Facebook.
But no, there are people that, obviously on both sides of that spectrum that are you're going to upset regardless of what you do. So, I like a lot of what you're saying. I disagree with some of what you're saying, but I'm glad that you're here, speaking what's important to you. One thing I will challenge is that this whole idea of the Libertarian Party needing to focus on all this stuff on national and having to secure Tom Woods. I would have loved to seen Austin on the debate stage in 2016. That's just me. Some people in the state party love seeing Gary Johnson, would have loved to see him on there.
I was a McAfee voter.
If I was a delegate, I would have went for McAfee too.
He went crazy afterwards, but he was fun during the election.
An interesting guy too. But regardless of who's going to be the presidential candidate in 2020, I mean, we've got an election year this year for a lot of local things. We've got a lot of local elections come up in 2020. There's a lot of legislative bills that you can focus on. Why would any state, and specifically our state like Nebraska, who's already got ballot access, who's already got people out there working on laws at the city and county and state level, why should we even care what any caucus is doing regardless, or even focus on the national?
Well, as far as the national party, I think most people kind of see it as the face, and they see it as our highest level of representation. It's what most people look to for what does the Libertarian Party represent. When they see the leader speak, that's what they think they're getting from the Libertarian parties. So we're going to have strong leadership, and leadership makes the morale of the people. Leadership, and I'm of the opinion that, again, this is all psychological, like at root. So we have to do what I call capture the intangibles. We have to find out ways to energize people. That is in my opinion, the most important thing. If we don't have people that care, if we don't have people who are willing to work and create a culture of work and results, then we don't have an energized base. How can you work? How can you build anything if you don't have a base? So, so we have to get that straight before we can build up.
Sure.
Now that's not to say that I don't do anything local. I'm active in my county. I go to my county level meetings here in Lancaster County, PA, and I'm actually running for the Eastern Vice Chair of my state party here next month.
Okay. Excellent. I mean, yeah, and so for us, I mean, I kind of see the Libertarian Party. Anyone that comes to the Libertarian Party, for the most part, hates centralized power. We hate the idea of a national centralized power. So I see a lot of us as not particularly wanting a strong LNC or a strong, national Libertarian Party. We'd prefer to look at it as more of like a confederacy of 50 individual states.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. I think we're going to have to build from the ground up. Honestly, I think it's a waste of time, with the exception of president. I generally speaking think it's a waste of time to even be running national candidates. We have to see if we can even retain the 4 state people that we have. You know what I mean? Sure. So we don't have the political capital for that. So of course we're going to have to build a culture from the ground up, But what I said was that they have to be not strong in terms of, like, you use the word centralized power. I wouldn't say that. I would say it's normal for organizations to have a hierarchy, though. And the top of the hierarchy is usually what motivates and does everything, and builds the character of the party. It's just like at your job. If you have a manager that just sits in the friggin' office all day, morale is going to be low with the employees. But if you have a manager that gets out there, gets in it, works, and does the same shit that everybody else doesn't want to do, then it's going to motivate. That's what we have to do. We have to figure out how to capture the intangibles. If we don't have that, there's not going to be anything to build off. There just isn't.
I'd like to see stop sabotaging each other. I mean, I was in Orlando. I was on the stage when I was off to the side of the stage when James Weeks went up there and did his little thing, his little dance or whatever during the LNC chair, and there are so many people within this party that seem to, if they don't get their way, they sabotage what's going on and they throw a fit and they throw a tantrum. I want to make sure that we're moving away from that direction here. So I mean,
I'm not going anywhere if that's what you're asking. I don't plan on like, oh, if we don't get Josh as the chair, I'm going to quit. No, man, I've been in this game for 10 years. I'm very, very passionate about what this is about, because this is about unlocking the ultimate potential of humanity. That's like heavy shit. That's very serious, heavy shit. And I'm going to see to it that it's done no matter what. And I'll work with what I have, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to use what I do have to not change it in the way that I see or I feel is best.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Zach, did you want to say something? You looked like you were going to say something there.
I don't know. Like I've seen not necessarily. How do I want to say this? I kind of said this to Joshua Smith a couple days ago as well. I feel like, you are an incredibly passionate person, and that fire is completely necessary for changing the political climate in America. Like, we need passionate, fiery leaders. I would hope to see you temper it a little bit more, because I felt like this confrontation. Well,
can I ask you for a specific? What particularly have I done that was not precipitated or brought on from the provocation of somebody else?
So I can understand. So, like, you'll never have to sell me on the fact that Daniel Hayes is not a good actor, like not acting in good faith. I don't like the man, and I've been very public about that. And I understand the antagonistic tone he has taken with you.
We have to be honest, though. He's a dishonest person, and he's a terrible leader, and he deserves to not be there, and we should do everything in our power to not have people like that there, and that's the friggin' problem with the party.
I would agree with that. But you were talking earlier about mixing marketing with principles, and that's my job in the Nebraska Party and with the Unconvention, and basically everything I do in relation to the party is about marketing on new media and presenting our message. What I hope is in a way that's principled but very calm, because I've found that the best way to deal with people like him, and he's a bully. I think Josh is right about when he says that, and Alicia Dern, I believe her name is, said that as well. There's the way to handle someone like that isn't to fire back at them. I don't think that's effective, because that's part of the reason we have Trump, in my view, is there was no one on the stage with him ever that was effective at making him look silly.
Well, you can't tackle a bull. This is where Rand failed miserably. You can't tackle a bull, and that's what Trump was. He was a bull, and if you can try to tackle a bull, you're going to get plowed over. With a bull, you have to use Tai Chi. You have to let their inertia do the damage for you.
Yeah.
So,
and I
so
see
if he continues to lie,
you guys were butting heads, and I felt like there was a way that you could have handled that initially, like without the appearance. I don't know how to say this. Because very strong.
Well, yeah, because the alternative is, well, if you don't defend yourself, then the alternative is this guy gets to lie with impunity and make up things with impunity. I mean, so like, for example, people like him, and Sarwark has done this too. I mean, he hasn't outright himself said, oh, the Mises Caucus is all right. He just likes comments that say that and stuff like that. Now, that's absolutely ridiculous. The platform doesn't even allow for it. Like, we literally get rid of identity politics and stuff like that from the platform, meaning, technically speaking, you could be an SJW, you could be an ethno-nationalist, because like I said, we don't have any hard stance on that things. But what you will do is you will conform to the platform. And so that means if you bring that stuff out, you're gone. We don't belong, because we have to be cognizant of venue. All right? Like, the government is not the venue for culture crap. It's not the venue for identity crap. Government is force. And at the end of the day, we are making a philosophical concession to join the government, and we have to be cognizant of that. So the government has no venue for culture stuff. unless we are fighting it back against infringements in that arena.
Yeah. Back to you, Mike.
I mean, look, I've gone back and forth on the philosophical stuff, and at a philosophical level, I'll agree with you here. And it would be nice to get to this, anarcho-capitalist utopia where we don't have any type of centralized government. But the fact of the matter is that's not going to be something that, a small group of libertarians is going to be able to overcome, or even millions of libertarians going to be able to overcome. We've got to work at effectively chipping away the system. Big chips, small chips, whatever we can get, because at this point, this philosophical debate for the last decade, 2 decades, hasn't yielded much of anything. I mean, I will say that over the last 8 years, we've managed to get ballot access legislation actually changed because of our efforts 2 times, and we've been able to secure ballot access. So now we can actually focus on the important stuff of the party, which is getting people elected at all levels. So I like your passion on this, man, and I agree with you on some of the stuff here with the LNC. I think we don't have to give up our philosophical aspect to it in order to have real world advancements, but at the same time, we can't just.
We just have to figure out how to market it. And we've done it before. That's what I'm saying. It's not like it's an opinion. We have the Ron Paul campaigns. We have millions and millions more, 500,000 in 40 years. Data is very clear. We've done it before. We just have to acknowledge what does and does not work.
And and Ron Paul, his ideas are what originally brought me over, and the marketing on those ideas were great, but I'm going to probably say something that's going to brand me a heretic right now amongst the libertarians, but what was his real world success? I mean, we still had all of these endless wars. We still had all of this, financial crap that was happening. Everything that he said that we should fight against, all the warrantless wiretaps, everything that he spoke out against still happened.
Well, so I think
having an amazing marketing, we're still here and we're still dealing with this stuff.
I think the biggest failings of the Ron Paul campaign are the fact that we didn't coalesce into the Libertarian Party after, and instead we fractured and dissipated and became very cynical, and the movement in general became very cynical because we're getting our ass kicked left, right, and center. So as far as that, well, yeah, and I think that's part of the problem with the fact that it was a Republican Party run. My point is if we can replicate that in the party, it died because it was a campaign. It was one man and it was a campaign who was representing ideas. So if we could take that energy and that culture, bring it into the party, the campaign never has to end and the results never have to end. The growth never has to end and all of that. It's just how do we capture the intangibles so that the culture is built to keep, doing more and more.
So, and going back to the marketing aspect though, how does an organization like Liberty Hangout fit in with that? Because I mean, these guys primarily just spout a bunch of memes, and when you've got people out there that are trying to coalesce around a particular argument, and look, like I said, Gary Johnson wasn't my number one choice, and I was not on board for Weld, but if we were going to have any type of advancement of the libertarian message, we had to explain why they were wrong, but in a way that said that, look, even though they're wrong on some of these things, this is what we as libertarians stand for. I don't see that with groups like Liberty Hangout, with some of these other, libertarian blogs that come along. And I realize that's, Zach and I host a small podcast here, but at the same time, we're also helping to run a state party. And so when people are looking to Libertarian Party, Nebraska's a little bit of an older population, so they're not going to be looking on Facebook as much. But those that do, they see Liberty Hangout and they're like, oh, this is what libertarians stand for now. And that's where you get this whole libertarians are all right type of thing, with some of the things that they push, some of the stories that they push.
And are they really? I mean, I know that they have a past, you know what I mean? And now, just to be clear, the Liberty Hangout people self-exited from the Mises Caucus.
Okay.
Like, they self-exited from the Mises Caucus group, and yes, there's a history there where people who now comprise of radicalcapitalist.com, which has a very serious marketing problem, used to be on Liberty Hangout. And Liberty Hangout, I think, has gone through a little bit of a positive rebranding, and I would encourage them to do that. But, I mean, different outlets are going to do different things, and there's different spheres in libertarianism. I think we have to get out of the business because, all right, are they personally conservative? Yeah. You know, do they promote Republican candidates that are libertarian leaning? Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. But it's not like we are like partnered with Liberty Hangout. They left the Mises Caucus group, you know. So the alt-right stuff, at that point you're getting into culture, and we have got to get out of the business of picking and choosing which culture should be represented and which culture is not. All of these things, philosophically speaking, are manifestations of the freedom of association that is going to have an innumerable number of manifestations. There's going to be all kinds of weird ass people doing weird ass shit, and so we've got to decide: is all of it worth promoting? And if the answer is yes, that means you're going to have to promote the socialists, you're going to have to promote the ethno-nationalists, you're going to have to promote everything, all of the weird, bizarre, negative, distasteful, good, bad, all of it. That's all got to be promoted. Or we could just say none of it, and we will generally uphold the freedom of association, which is what I think is the right way to go. Yeah.
Well, the freedom of association is the way to go, but also tailoring the message. And I think there are got to be some things that we speak out against, not necessarily as like a, you know,
I agree with that.
Policing social aspects to it, but saying like, look, this is not what the party itself stands for. Like if you join the party and you're pushing libertarian ideals, it's, you know, let's keep it real simple. It's the free markets, it's the freedom of association, stuff like that. It's not, you know, Pepe memes and all this other stuff.
Right, and we've never shared anything like that. But
how did you just pronounce meme?
Yeah, and we've never shared anything like that. But what I'm saying is, so like the party put out that statement saying that, like, you know, we reject racism and bigotry and stuff like that, and I think that was appropriate, especially given the environment that was created by these two out of control groups, the alt-right and the communist left and the SJWs and all that stuff. All I ever asked for was consistency. So my point being is, if we're going to say, if we're going to get into the business of picking and choosing these things, we should be consistent and say we should reject all forms of toxic collectivism, including socialism. Socialism is not worthy of being promoted. I'm sorry. That yes, it will be. There will be voluntary socialist communes in a theoretical free society. Okay, we all get that. But however, again, in a theoretical free society, how would they get it? The only way they would get it is through property rights in the market. They would have to obtain the property legitimately, and then they would have to use their freedom of association to reject property rights and capitalism. But it still is based on the fundamental principles that the party is about. So all I ever asked for was consistency. If we're going to say racists and bigots are not welcome, which they're not, I actually was, I don't want to say help chase out, but I was part of the crowd that was saying, get Augustus Invictus the hell out of here. All I asked for was consistency and say, we've got to do the same thing for the socialists. And for some reason, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. There seems to be, like I said earlier, this choice that we're going to get away from principles and drift to the left and focus on left topics. That is not attractive to the vast majority of libertarians, and we have to account for that and do something about it.
Well, I agree. I mean, socialism is the antithesis of libertarianism, and it's so yeah, we shouldn't be in the market of promoting that at all. You know, I think we've been having a good conversation, and honestly, I'd love to have another podcast with you, because I like this back and forth, and I like being able to like disagree with somebody from time to time, but still have this kind of like respectful attitude. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to agree on everything, but I want to hear.
The toxic shit only happens on Facebook, dude. It never happens. No, seriously, it's a real thing to put out there, because people are so used to using the devices that they stop forming connections. And when you form connections, you find out that you have a lot more in common. And it's a lot easier to lie about somebody when there's no repercussions, because it's through social media and all these kinds of things. We have to be connected. We have to have a culture. I know it's a bad word. I'm not saying it has to be a right-wing culture, a conservative culture, but we have to have our own culture. We have to have a libertarian culture of work. yeah, all the stuff I said before. We have to build our own culture, and we're not going to do that if we're just, calling each other alt-right and communists and statists or whatever it might be on Facebook.
Stop with the mentioning of the helicopter rides and actually engage somebody off of social media. Yeah. Look, I just want to ask, has this Ron Paul thing has there been a final decision on this yet, or is this still up in the air at this point? Okay. Well,
despite what Daniel Hayes says.
Yeah. Okay.
And I know he says that as far as I know, where it is at now is he used Professor Walter Block from the Mises Institute as an intermediary to convey an invite to Ron Paul, and Ron declined the offer. However, why wouldn't Ron Paul decline the offer? I mean, think about it. Hayes said he's out and doesn't represent the LP. I made the story. The story went so big that Ron personally addressed it.
Mm-hmm.
Hayes gets completely roasted by the Liberty Movement, because that's what happened here. The Libertarian Party bumped up to the Liberty Movement and lost. It blew up, and so he got the backlash from that. They were forced to capitulate and say, "Oh, okay, Ron Paul is in fact welcome," and then in that context went to Ron and said, "Oh, we want to have you," knowing that he was the one saying that in the first place. And now this is pure speculation on my part, but I'm assuming that they would not have paid Ron Paul for the services, because that was part of the beef and part of the 30 or so narratives that they threw out about me, is that I was trying to put the party on the hook for paying Ron Paul, which was never the case. And
sure.
And so I doubt they would have paid him. They probably offered, I'm willing to bet that they offered to pay his travel. I mean, that's what Hayes said to me originally back when the idea was first said. So I'm sure they offered him that. But why would Ron say yes to him at that point? Like, Ron is a guy with a lot of, so I am still working on it, and it is still, I think, in play.
Okay. Well,
and and that's not speculative. I'm in touch with people surrounding Ron.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean, we're definitely going to be following this one. I mean, and for those of us heading down to New Orleans or planning to head down to New Orleans, we want to make sure that it's going to be worth the time to go down there. So it'd be nice to hear Ron speak.
I would just like to say that Ron Paul is definitely coming to the Unconvention.
That seems like a cool event, man. It's going to be fun.
He will be in Omaha. So yeah, anybody, was that a shameless plug there, Zach?
I make shameless plugs on our podcast all the time. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I don't really have a whole lot. I mean, I just wanted to, get a little bit of a history on this one and just have a chat with you. So I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can do this again.
I'm open.
Excellent. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else, looks like it's someone's bedtime here.
Oh, that's so adorable.
So I'm gonna sign off for the evening here, gentlemen. But again, thanks again, Michael. Thanks, Zach, for hosting this.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone.